Hey guys, this is Squiddyvon, and welcome back to .GameTV. It has been a long time, and well, that's pretty much because it's been a long time since we had any real updates on Starfield. Yes, we had a couple tiny tidbits here and there, but nothing really substantial going all the way back to the Xbox June showcase last year. But after all that long waiting, we finally got to see the deep dive of Starfield we've all been waiting for, and honestly, I'm pretty blown away by what I've seen so far. This game has really come a long way in a year. So in this video, we're going to go through all of the details shown in the Starfield Direct, and I'll be breaking down features, gameplay elements, graphical changes, and I'll also be pointing out the improvements we've seen from 2022 to 2023, which I've got to say is actually kind of shocking. It looks like a completely different game in some respects. Now before we get started, if you're getting hyped up for Starfield or just generally interested in learning more about the game, make sure to hit the subscribe button below. It really means a lot to me to go along with you guys for the ride. Once the game releases, I'll be making more videos on helpful tips, game mechanics, cool locations, weapons and location tier lists, you name it, and I'll be talking about it. Also make sure to leave a comment and let me know what you're most hyped about when it comes to Starfield, and if there is any specific kind of content you'd like to see me make. Okay, so let's get started. Now, before the Starfield Direct, Bethesda did show a new gameplay trailer that is only about 3 minutes in length, and I'm basically going to ignore this trailer in this video. Pretty much every shot in the trailer was also shown again later in the Starfield Direct, but I did want to mention one cool thing that is shown, and that is travel to Earth does look possible in Starfield. As many people immediately pointed out online, the first shot we see does look an awful lot like the St. Louis Arch in Missouri, and this certainly brings on a post-apocalyptic feel to the planet. We still don't know what kind of disaster was responsible for the state of Earth, but I'm guessing something like an asteroid solar flare, nuclear Armageddon, something pretty pungent to get the Earth in this bad of a state. I'm also gonna guess that my nearby home of Kansas City didn't fare much better. Okay, so now on to the Direct, and before we get into it, in an interview with IGN, Todd Howard did confirm something that has been on the mind of Xbox owners as of late. Starfield will run on both Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S at 30 frames per second. And as of right now, there are no official plans for 60 frames per second performance mode or anything like that. I was hopeful Starfield might have a shot at pulling out 60 frames per second, or at least 40 frames per second in some kind of VRR mode, but it indeed looks like the console world will be stuck at 30 frames per second for the time being. While I'm more of a PC gamer than a console gamer, I do find it frustrating that developers continue to target ridiculously high resolutions for console games instead of prioritizing frame rate, with the Series X targeting 4K 30 and the Series S targeting 1440p 30. When I end up playing this game on PC with my RTX 3080, I'll more than likely be targeting a 1440p resolution, so it blows my mind that the Series S would try to target such a high resolution. I can't speak for everyone, but I know there's a huge contingency of gamers who would prefer 1080p 60 to 1440p 30 with better visuals. The scale and modularity of Starfield may just tax the CPU bandwidth on consoles just a little too much to achieve 60 even at lower resolutions, so we'll probably have to wait to see just how the game runs on release to make a better guess if 60 frames per second will ever be coming to console. Bethesda did also release PC specifications for Starfield, and I hope you have a decent rig. Even the minimum specs will require 125 GB of disk space on an SSD, 16 GB of RAM, a 6800K processor, and a GTX 1070 Ti GPU. And again, that's a minimum. For recommended specs, which I assume is trying to achieve around 60 frames per second, you'll need a 10600K and an RTX 2080. This basically means if your computer was built before 2018 or so, your rig might struggle with running Starfield. So performance, as always, remains to be seen, and while I'm as hyped as you can be for this game, I do realize everything we've been shown so far is marketing material, so until we are hands-on, it's perfectly okay to stay skeptical of how the game might perform. Okay, so back to the Starfield Direct itself. Throughout the Direct, we get to hear from a variety of Bethesda team members, Todd Howard included of course, guide us through some of the various systems and features we'll be seeing when the game releases in September. It was nice to see some new faces from the Bethesda team get to shine in the limelight for a bit, and they honestly all did really well on camera and brought their own personal flair to whatever was being discussed. The production value was incredibly high throughout, and in terms of format, this might be one of the best overall game presentations I've ever seen. Now the game itself is looking incredible. So much better than it was looking a year ago. Todd tells us the game engine is now lit with real-time global illumination. We don't know exactly the details on the lighting system, but from the gameplay throughout, lighting looks really good. Way better than I thought a creation engine game could pull off. The valley fog effects and rendering distances are impressive, and combined with Bethesda's knack for landscaping, the visual results are as good as I could have hoped for. Todd also says the lighting will be based on the type of star a planet is orbiting, and also the planet's atmospheric composition, to keep things as accurate and grounded in reality as possible. The planets and moons look detailed and picturesque, and best of all of those objects actually exist. The planets and lighting realistically simulate the motion of each solar system. So in this shot, if you look at the small moon to the left, the ringed planet ahead, and the lighting and shadowing on the ground, all of the light sourcing is coming from the same direction, as it should be in a consistent way. This is something that we can expect for all 1,000 plus planets regardless of the time of day. If it all works as well as it appears to throughout the showcase, exploring new worlds is going to be that much more immersive. It's a really ambitious undertaking given the scale of this game. We also get to see that there are unique weather systems in the game, as you can see with this shot with some nice lightning effects in the background. I'm hoping that the weather systems are dynamic and do offer significant changes from time to time. The game's volumetrics and atmosphere with the new lighting model look really good. Combat effects are also improved, and things like motion blur and bullet tracing are noticeably better than at last year's showcase. And yeah, while we're on that topic, combat. This probably shocked me more than anything else in the presentation. Dare I say the combat looked good? I don't think I've ever seen such a complete 180 from how combat and shooting looked to what was shown in 2022. The gunplay looks pretty engaging and weapons feel powerful. In my opinion anyways, the guns look really nice and are well designed, and this is coming from someone who absolutely hated the gun design in Fallout. Starfield will also apparently include more guns and mods than any previous game, which is impressive because Fallout 4 had a pretty extensive weapon and modding system. We can see here from the weapon workbench view that we can see our own gun stats with damage output, fire rate, mag size, and other details like accuracy. We can also see available mod slots. It looks like for this weapon we have receiver, internal, optic, magazine, and battery, and also muzzle. In the demo, they changed the ammo to use explosive rounds, which is a cool inclusion, and I see white hot rounds listed as an option as well. Similar to Fallout, you can see the build materials required for the mod in the top right corner. Bethesda showed off a ton of variety with silencers, shotguns, assault weapons, rocket launchers, energy weapons, grenade launchers, freeze grenades, sniper rifles, and even melee, which looks surprisingly fun. The pacing of the shooter is miles ahead of what we saw a year ago. Enemies no longer look like bullet sponges, and animations are smoother and more reactive. The general player mobility is a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. The jetpack is going to be a hugely fundamental mechanic to the game, and you can really zip around with it, and aerial combat is much more prevalent than I ever would have guessed. Since planets will have different gravity levels, how you jump and interact with the world will be affected, so the jetpack is going to be particularly key on certain planets. Also, when there is no gravity, Bethesda mentioned that ballistics weapons will actually realistically propel you backwards when you fire them, while energy weapons provide a more stable zero-G combat experience. This is another one of those touches, just like the sky system, that they didn't really have to do, but it adds to the immersion so much in the world overall, and it's a really nice touch that just helps build cohesion into that experience. We also got a lot of new information about spaceships within Starfield. For someone who really likes sleek, futuristic spaceships, I've got to say this NASA punk, more analog and retro aesthetic is really starting to grow on me. I love the look of all of the electronics throughout the ship. The interiors in general are very detailed, and I can't wait to see the variety of modules you can lay out your ship with. We're going to be able to customize all of these different things shown on screen, including cowling, shield generator, docker, fuel tanks, grav drive, weapons, hab, engines, cockpit, cargo hold, reactor, landing gears, and bay. I think the shipbuilding is going to produce some of the most fun moments in Starfield, whether you're someone who prefers to style your ship realistically or someone who, like these Bethesda team members, don't. I can only wait for the monstrosities that will no doubt get posted all over Twitter and Reddit when the game comes out. Bethesda also showed off some ship flying mechanics that really have me excited. Now, we already knew about the power distribution systems from last year's showcase, but it does look like they've been implemented well and should be easily controllable. It looks like they'll also be very much tied to the stats of your overall ship and components that you choose. Now, we did learn more about the grav drive and how putting more energy to the grav drive will actually increase the speed at which you can do a grav jump. Now, this could be very useful when you're trying to get away, as it looks like they're trying to do here. I think the coolest things they showed, though, were the ability to interact with other ships both in and out of combat. You can unlock the targeting control systems skill within the game, which will allow you to target specific components of an enemy ship. My inner Star Trek nerd can almost not handle how cool this is. It looks like any of the ship's subsystems can be targeted, and I think this is going to have a huge impact on the way space combat plays out. I was also glad to see that there are non-combat ways to interact with other ships as well. You can hail any other ship you come across, which effectively turns every ship in the galaxy into an NPC. You can trade, ask about rumors, and most importantly, become a space pirate. Speaking of space pirates, we do get to learn a little bit more about the Crimson Fleet. Now, we've seen the fleet headquarters before in the previous showcase, but in this one we do get to see that it's actually a giant space station. And not just any space station, a former United Colonies space station. And this won't be the only space station we can visit in Starfield. There will be multiple other space stations that are fully explorable both inside and out. Now, to find these locations, we'll need to use our star map. I've talked about this map in previous videos and how it shows the general layout of each solar system, planet's resources, and quest markers and points of interest. Scanning a planet will show a color-coordinated view of the different resources that are available on each region of the planet. A nice touch that'll allow resource gathering to be just a little easier. Once we know where we want to go, we can plot a course and make a grav jump. In this scene, the player jumps to Jemison for the city New Atlantis. As this is a United Colonies planet, we're immediately scanned on arriving in the system, so we get to see the smuggling mechanics in action in the game, although we don't know quite how smuggling will work and how you'll be able to shield your cargo from those scanners. The cities themselves, like New Atlantis, look incredible and are full of detail, full of NPCs, and the new lighting really makes the world pop. Apart from New Atlantis, we also get to revisit Aquila City and Neon, two of the other major cities in the game. I didn't think it was possible, but Aquila City and the Freestar Collective look even more Western than I originally thought. These two guys here appear to be literally having a Western gunslinging duel. Neon, with its drugs and anything goes attitude, looks as cyberpunky as ever. I think the club shown here will be a fan favorite, and I'm sure these go-go dancers will be one of the most modded assets in the game. Now, handcrafted environments have always been a Bethesda specialty, but what about this procedural generation we've been hearing about? We got some very vague explanations as to how the world stitches terrain patches together and how the world is procedurally generated as the player approaches. This means that two different players could essentially take the exact same route and still end up with very different experiences while exploring. Now, I know some people get very turned off by hearing procedural generation or procedural content, but I think the way Bethesda has laid this game out makes a lot of sense. ACG, a popular gaming outlet, recently made a video where they discuss the different procedural generation techniques that could be used in the creation of Starfield. I'll post a link to that comment in the description below. I definitely suggest checking it out if you're interested in how this procedural generation might work. What we've seen from those systems already is very impressive, and I'm hopeful the end game will look just as good. There is a huge variety of landscapes and biomes and planets and moons, all of which have their own unique beauty and individual style. I seriously just can't get over the lighting and the sunsets and the way the light plays off the landscape. It looks so good. And what's even crazier is just how much better it looks than that 2022 version. I want you to look at a few specific scenes just to see the differences. Aquila City doesn't even look like the same city. Lighting is so much fuller and more baked out, and there's additional detail just about everywhere on the map. I think this shot alone shows exactly why this game needed so much more time in the oven and why those delays were so justified. And it's not just this scene as well. New Atlantis looks way better, lighting effects and animations overall look better, and even character models are vastly improved. Again, I am just shocked in how far this game has come in just a year. Now, there was a ton more digging up of details I could do for this Starfield Direct, and I'll end up getting to a lot more of those details in future videos, but I wanted you guys to get some of my base reactions for everything we've been shown. If this game can really live up to everything that it's displayed during this showcase, I think this is a game that really has true Game of the Year potential. And that's saying a lot with the likes of Hogwarts Legacy, Tears of the Kingdom, Diablo 4, and many other anticipated titles. This game just seems to have something that would appeal to just about everyone. I'd love to hear what you guys are looking forward to most and if there was anything in the showcase that jumps out to you. I'll be doing more breakdowns of the details we've seen in the showcase thus far, and I'll also be making a video on the collector's edition of the game and some of the merchandise that Bethesda showed would be available for Starfield. All in all though, this was an incredible showcase, and I gotta say I'm very optimistic on what we've seen. Right or wrong, I am incredibly hyped for this game, and I hope you guys are too. Thanks for watching, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you guys soon for another Starfield video. This is SquiddyVon, and this is .GameTV.